Outfit of the day for getting an embryo put inside my uterus.
Go time.
Can you tell that I'm not doing okay right now? That was a bummer. Come the fuck on, eggs. I'm all over the place emotionally, but I call bullshit
The natural rhythms of my body.
I'm getting quite impatient now.
Yesterday I got my period, so this means it is embryo transfer cycle time. We decided to do an unmedicated cycle. I didn't even know beforehand that there was an option between medicated and unmedicated, but apparently so. For my egg collection, we were doing a freeze all cycle. So my body has now had like a whole menstrual cycle to relax, to rest, recuperate. Because of my polycystic ovaries, and I was told by the doctor that the IVF meds can make your following cycle longer, we were looking at a 46-dayer, rock and roll. But my period came. It's go time. Unmedicated means unmedicated. So essentially, it's just cycle tracking, ovulation tests twice daily from day 11, and I've got a scan booked in on day 10 just to check how everything's doing. I imagine because of my really long cycles that there'll be fuck all happening that they can see by day 11, but it's fine because you would rather be checking things too early than checking things too late and missing that optimum window for transfer. We were told that there's really no difference in success rates between a medicated and unmedicated cycle. Also, they kept calling it a natural cycle, which I have feelings about, so that's why I'm saying unmedicated. I think there's a lot of baggage that comes with the word natural when it has anything to do with reproduction, pregnancy, birth. Natural, that is a loaded word. There's a lot of value judgment gets attached to the word a natural. So I'm going unmedicated. Upsides of it, less invasive. They also said that if you have a medicated cycle and you do get pregnant, you have to continue those injections and a lot of that medication into 12 weeks of pregnancy. And I was like, no, thank you. A couple of the downsides of the unmedicated cycle is that it's a bit more unpredictable. It's more likely to be cancelled than a medicated cycle because it might just be that they see my uterus lining is not developed enough, is not ready, and we have to cancel it and try again. And also I have less control over when the embryo transfer date will be. So if I was medicated, we could be like, okay, let's time it for this really convenient day in our lives and work schedule by doing the hormones on a certain day and time. But because we're just going with the natural rhythms of my body, doing the ovulation tests, it's essentially as soon as I get that LH peak, that luteinizing hormone peak that spikes just before you ovulate, I think they said it's 5 days after that is when they would do an embryo transfer to basically replicate roughly when you would have implantation after ovulation if you were having a normal pregnancy. So that is out of my control. And as a scheduling, organized girly, yes, I'm struggling with that, but it is a price that I am willing to pay for no more injections. I will have to have some progesterone pessaries or suppositories at some point, but because of my rectal stump, I do not have a colon and I just have a rectal stump hanging out in my bum. I shan't be inserting those up my bum. They will be going up my vagina. Okay, let's go. It is time for my first tracking scan. I am expecting absolutely nothing because we're on about day 10 of my cycle. They want me to have my first scan before day 11 and we're going to Manchester this afternoon. So today it is, but because my cycles with my polycystic ovaries are really long, I'm like, you're not going to see anything. We're going to be in very early stages of follicle development. But we'll see how it goes. From tomorrow, I have to start doing twice daily ovulation tests. So that will give us a better idea. I'm just expecting negative for a good while, at least a week before we start seeing that line darkening at all. But you never know. I'm back on my metformin. And with the metformin, my cycles still have been irregular, but they have been shorter. Before I was on my metformin, I experienced a 50-something day cycle and a 76-day cycle. And now my range is somewhere between
32 and 47. So improvements, but time to have a probe shoved up my vagina once again. Also, it's kind of funny timing because the first episode of the Hormone Diaries, the egg collection episode, is actually going out today. So that's kind of fun. Got a scan today. The first episode that you guys are seeing is coming out today. Okay, let's go. As predicted, basically nothing to see, which means I have to go back for another scan on Tuesday. Now, for the egg collection, I was really smart because I knew in advance that every Monday, Wednesday and Friday I would need to be in for tracking scans, and I reduced my workload, video upload schedule. I was working under capacity also because the med side effects were like fatigue and all of that kind of stuff. So I prepared for that. Have I prepared my work schedule for regular tracking scans because my period is so irregular and it's just like, anything yet? Just like constantly like, no, I have not. It's also currently the Easter holidays. I was meant to have Rowan today, but for obvious reasons, they do not let you bring children to the fertility clinic. So Rowan is actually at work with Dan this morning, living his best life, absolutely loving it. So yeah, I need to re-strategize my work this month, I think, depending on how often I'm going to have to be coming into London for scans. But at least I'm not going to be bloated and fatigued yet. Scan number 2. Hello. It is a gorgeous day today. So my scan yesterday, once again, showing nothing. Nada. We got nothing going on down there. No obvious follicle that is growing bigger than the rest, and the lining of my uterus still very thin. Now, I'm not surprised because of the nature of the length of my cycles. Like, I haven't even started experiencing any of the, creamy discharge that you get in the lead up towards ovulation. That hasn't even started occurring yet. I am currently, I think, on day 16 of this cycle. So this all feels very normal for me. However, the doctor who is our main consultant doing the scan said the C word, cancellation. Now, he didn't say we need to cancel the cycle, but he said the word as like, if nothing is happening, then they would potentially have to cancel the cycle. We would have to start again from when I get my next period and probably do a medicated cycle just so that, we actually like medicate things going on rather than waiting for my body to like do its thing. That was a bummer, even though he wasn't saying we have to cancel the cycle. And I know, I was like, this is normal for me. This is normal. I still just found myself in an absolute funk after that, just like feeling quite down just because I was like, oh no. But we've booked in another scan for 9 days time. So like a week and 2 days. And knowing my body, I'm really hoping that there's something to show for it then, because I'll be on like day 22 or whatever of my cycle. And so I'm really hoping that my body gets moving, that things are happening by then. I am doing my ovulation tests still. Obviously nothing to show for it, no surprises there. But yeah, we are plodding along. I knew that the downside of the natural cycle was it's more likely to get cancelled, and also it would interfere more with my like life and work. And I was like, that's fine. That is the price that I'm willing to pay for a less invasive process, less injections and all of that. Am I starting to regret that decision now? A little bit, because the scan that I'm having next week, again, I've had to like move things around in my work schedule for that. Like, at least with the egg collection cycle, I could block out all of that time because I knew that whilst I was in treatment, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I was having scans. Whereas for this, it's so much more unpredictable. Like, I went in on a Tuesday and now my next scan is on a Thursday, but a week on Thursday. After that scan, I've no idea when my next scan will be, if there'll be a next scan. So once again, I find myself in the situation where I'm struggling to plan things. I just kind of just have to keep going as normal and just Like, I already had to cancel a meeting that I had with somebody because of this scan next Thursday. I'm like, sorry, medical appointment, which, you know, is fair enough. But I am a planner. I'm an organized little calendar blocky girly, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the logistics, and I'm struggling mentally, emotionally with the, come on, I just need something to show up on this next scan. Something, anything. It can be hard sometimes in medical situations to advocate for yourself and for the doctor to kind of like take your word for it. Like, I don't want to be in a situation where they want to cancel it and I'm like, no, I know my body. It's not that I'm not going to ovulate this cycle. We just need to give it time. I just want to be given some more time. Let my body do its thing, because I know it can do it. I know. This is my huge box of the cheap ovulation tests that have annoying little baby on the box. These are the strips. They wanted me to use a clear blue digital ovulation test, but if you want me to do that twice a day, every day, and I know that I have a long cycle, so I'm going to be like doing more than normal. No, I'm not using those expensive tests. I'm using these cheapy ones, and then when I know that I'm actually getting close to ovulation and I think that an LH positive peak test is coming, then I'll switch to the digital expensive ones. But these ones I like because there's an app that you can use with them, and you take pictures of the results and then it gives you like a score for it, because essentially it's not about whether or not there is a second line there. There's the control line and the test line, and it's about the intensity of that test line. So it gives it a score. And once that test line is as strong as or stronger than the control line, that's your surge baby, that's your LH positive. But they want me to do a digital one as well for like absolute certainty. Fun, fun, fun. Okay, I'm on day 22 of this cycle. My ovulation strips are still negative, although this one was a little bit darker. We'll see. And I'm getting a bit worried about how many I've got left. I wasn't tracking my ovulation last cycle, but I think I probably ovulated somewhere between day 30 and day 34. So there's still time, and I've got my next scan in 3 days. So crossing my fingers there's something to show for it, but I need to count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So that's enough for 6.5 more days. But I did go to Boots and I got me the clear blue digital ovulation test that gives you like a flashing smiley face if you're getting close to ovulation, and then a steady smiley face when you've peaked. You've peaked, love. And holy shit, these things are expensive. This is just the 10 test box, which will last me 5 days. And this was £31, £26 with my Boots card. So saving a fiver. But there was also a pack of 50 of these, I think, or something. And that was like over 50 quid. Crazy. Anyway, 5 days of these. How many of these did I say I have? 9.5 days, I think, left of these. That's definitely enough. I'm just not sure exactly when to start doing these. Maybe do at least one. These are just going to continue being my guide. As soon as these ones start getting a little bit dark, then I need to make sure I save the wee in the cup so I can test the same wee twice and then move on to these. I'm getting quite impatient now. Day 22. Come the fuck on. Come the fuck on, eggs. Like, I know you can do it. No, you can fucking do it. This unnatural cycle is proving far more stressful than I would have liked, and I fear that I have been an absolute numpty. I was too busy getting myself worked up about the price of ovulation tests when we're paying for private fertility treatment. I don't know why I got so in my head about it and so furious about the price of ovulation tests without considering the bigger picture. Anyway, I did my usual cheap test strip ovulation test this morning, and it was positive, but that doesn't mean it was like peak, but we had our first positive. So I was like, okay, great. Same wee sample. I did my first clear blue one. Lo and behold, it's a fucking steady, smiley face, which apparently means peak, but I call bullshit. I don't know how these things work. It basically says if you just get an empty circle, not in your fertile window. If you get a flashing smiley face, then you're in your fertile window, and then it becomes a steady smiley face when it's the peak. How does it know it's peaked if it doesn't know what has come before or after? Riddle me that. You have done one test. And the way that this works as well is that this is like the test machine, and you dip these bits in the wee and then you stick them in and then it reads it. And so I've got one of these, 10 of these. However, it says once you get the steady smiley face, once you get the peak result, that's it. This bad boy doesn't work anymore. So, fuck. I'm going to continue doing my normal test strips because clearly, like, I'm about to peak. According to this, I've already peaked. How does it know? I don't know. Anyway, I've emailed to the clinic. I meant to have my next scan in 2 days. We'll see if they bring it forwards to, like, check and see what's going on. I've got no egg white discharge, so I really wasn't expecting this to happen. Can you tell that I'm not doing okay right now? I also did these tests in the 10-minute break that I had from my coaching training, and I'm now filming this in the following 10-minute break, and I am trying to concentrate so hard, but I am just panicking. And this is not exactly something that I can bring to the coaching practice that we're about to do, because what can I do about this? I've emailed to the clinic, that's it. Now I just wait. I'm so annoyed! Can someone explain to me how these things work? How does it know that it's my peak? How? The only way you know if there's a peak is if you know the data points either side. This bad boy's only got one data point. How the fuck does it know? Rude. Right, it is scan number 3 time. They pushed it forward a day. So it's meant to be tomorrow, but it's now today. Good. Yesterday, only a mere few hours after getting those like positive peak ovulation test results, the extremely fertile egg white discharge arrived. So everything seems to be looking good from my bodily end, like in terms of the things that I track and am aware of. And so now I'm just crossing my fingers that internally they're able to see that everything is good to go. I have returned. It is good news, but there was a moment where I was scared it wasn't going to be good news. So we have the embryo transfer date. It's happening. It's happening. When it finally like settled in that it was like, oh, we're going ahead with this. It's happening on this day. I kind of like, I don't know, started feeling a bit emotional, and then asking like, how many days after the transfer do you do a pregnancy test? And the doctor said it was 13 days. And so there I am, obviously like looking at my calendar and being like, okay, what day am I going to know if I'm pregnant or not? But yeah, it felt a bit touch and go for a minute. The doctor doing my scan, like I couldn't read her. She was like delivering good news, but she was making it sound like it was not good news. But it was basically because she was explaining how the scans aren't conclusive that I have or haven't ovulated. She found a follicle that was irregular and 17 millimeters wide, and she suspects that that one is the one that's ovulated, but she also found some other big-ish ones, like an 11 millimeter or 12 millimeter or something, all on my left ovary. And then she also said with my uterus lining, it was 7.1 millimeters, which is good. However, once you have ovulated, after ovulation, the lining apparently becomes different. It changes because of the progesterone hormone that kicks in after ovulation. And so because it's been over a week since my last scan, clearly we maybe would have benefited from having like another scan in between. But how are we to know? Where they would have seen follicle growth and would have seen uterus lining growth before ovulation. Because my 2 prior scans, it was like too early. There was like nothing to see. And then suddenly in the last week, it all happened. And we didn't catch any of it until obviously after I've ovulated. And she was just like, I can't say for certain if you have or not. She was like, you could do a blood test, which is more conclusive. But she said if that comes back negative or positive, like it could mean different things. I was just there like, what do you mean? What's the plan then? What's happening? And I kind of explained to her as well. I was like, I got the really egg white fertile discharge. I also track my temperature and usually after an LH surge, so like the ovulation test peak. Usually a few days after that is when I'll get my temperature rise. And so even though none of these things on their own are conclusive that I have ovulated, if you take into account like the uterus lining, the follicle that they've seen on the scan, the LH surge, if I get a temperature rise, my discharge, like that's 5 different indicators. And if they're all lining up, that feels good. And actually she was very reassuring, other than all of like that confusing bit. She was really reassuring in terms of listening to me. And she was like, you know your body best. Like if you're tracking all of these things and you know that that's what your body does, then like we will take that into account. Like she kind of like really did put the ball in my court in terms of like what's next. And so I was just like, so we good to go? And she was like, yeah. So tomorrow I have to start taking my progesterone medication, which is like a pessary that I need to put up my vagina every morning and every evening. And then 5 days after that is embryo transfer, if all goes well. I don't know exactly what time it is yet. The nurses and the team there need to like, you know, do all of their like scheduling and whatnot, depending on how many people today who they scan also need procedures done on Monday. So TBC on the time. And then apparently the embryologist is also going to call me the day before to go through everything with the embryos. And fingers crossed all goes well with the thawing. Just lots of fingers crossed, all of the fingers crossed. But this feels weird, good, I don't know. Oh my God, the nurse was not kidding when she said that these progesterone pessaries that I have to put up my vagina every morning and evening would result in it all kind of like coming out, like this very white, thick, waxy substance just like leaking out of my vagina. So that's super fun. Also, they look almost identical to my steroid suppositories that I sometimes put up my rectum when I'm getting inflammation up there. So best to not get them mixed up. That's the update. Outfit of the day for getting an embryo put inside my uterus. Yes, the day has come and I feel weird about it. Not weird in a bad way. Obviously, I'm very excited and nervous. The anticipation, I need to drink lots of water. I need to have a semi-full bladder when I arrive and I need to leave in 20 minutes. So Dan's meeting me there from work. He doesn't have to be there, but kind of symbolically, it feels important that he's there. But I feel weird about it because this is like the final thing. Obviously, it might not work, and so it won't be the final thing. But in terms of all of the steps, every blood test, every injection, every appointment, every scan, all of those, I was just kind of like taking in my stride because I was like, this is just one step in the process. And now today is the end of the process. And it's like all of that has been gearing up to like this moment that's gonna like be over in 10-15 minutes. I've been told it's like a smear. I actually had one of those recently, so I feel well prepared. I think it's that difference between today's appointment not being a step in the process but being the end point, the final frontier, and then 13 days is what they've said to give before doing a pregnancy test. Obviously, I've already calculated what that day is. And luckily for us, in the like few days before that testing day, we've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got a lot of busy things, family things happening. And so that will hopefully keep my mind off it and distract me before it is time to test. But here we go. They're going to thaw the embryo and then they're going to put it in. And then we just wait. So much waiting. Hello, I am back. It's all done. There is an embryo inside me and I'm all over the place emotionally. Almost started crying just now. I'm just very fragile. And it's not even because of this, although it is because of this. Just like work stuff. I just like something with a video edit. This is very funny because my video editor will be watching this as she edits this and realizing that the reason I behaved a certain way on a certain day is because this is the day that it was happening. But we're not telling people about like the specifics of things. Like previously I was telling like family and friends, oh, we've got this coming up, or like I told them like the date of the egg collection and things. But this day I didn't want to have anyone, like close family, close friends, I didn't want to have anyone texting me in 2 weeks going, so? Absolutely not. Do not want that. So it is just me and Dan that knows. Why? I'm not even sad. I've just been asked very kindly and completely appropriately to do a very mundane admin task by my team, and I don't want to. What the fuck is wrong with me? I'm like, I don't want to. I've got other work that I do need to do this afternoon, but I'm now realising that maybe that was a mistake. Oh, fuck. It was so anticlimactic today, obviously. It's like very strange. It's so symbolically meaningful. And then also, it was really painful. My bladder was so full, really needed a wee. But they need your bladder to be full so that it pushes your uterus flat. They don't want your uterus tilted because it makes it easier, the angle and everything. And so I have this really full bladder. I'm desperate for a wee. It is so uncomfortable. And then they go in with the speculum, they clamp you open. That's really horrible. Definitely lasted longer than a smear test because then they give your cervix a good clean. That was uncomfortable. Then the nurse is also doing an ultrasound on my belly so that they've got vision of my uterus, and obviously that pressing down, even though it was like super light, was like pushing against my bladder, and I was like, ah! And then when they like pop in the catheter up my cervix, that hurt. And then the embryo goes in, and then you see this little like white circle on the scan, but that is just the space around it or something, because the embryo is too small to show up on the scan. And so then the embryologist has to check the catheter tube and make sure it's empty, make sure that the embryo isn't there. Because then if the embryo isn't still in the catheter tube, it's in your uterus. So we got the all clear, and then I immediately went to the toilet. Yeah, and now I'm like this. I got given a little bag of things. I got some sweets and a candle. Some sweets, what am I on about? Some chocolate, face mask. And then we also got a little scan of the embryo. So I don't know if you can see, but that little dot there, that thing there, that is the embryo. The huge kind of like black space here, that's my incredibly full bladder. That's all of my wee. And then this like shape here, that's my uterus. I think that's my cervix, and then like my vagina's here because I saw the catheter tube come in this way. Anyway, has anyone else ever had an emotional reaction like this to being asked to do a very simple but tedious job? Oh man, fun. Yeah, maybe the candle and the face mask, maybe they were onto something there. Why? I'm gonna need a minute to figure out what I'm gonna do with myself for the rest of the day, because I don't know what I'm capable of, but I'm sure that Dan is fine. I'm sure he's doing much better than me. He is literally giving a presentation at work in 20 minutes, so I could not. I could not. Okay, I'm slightly more composed today. I feel like this 2 weeks is going to be excruciating. Turns out as well that I'm not allowed to do any rigorous exercise. I'm just doing my physio exercises right now. This isn't particularly rigorous, so I think I'll be fine. But I understand the no swimming and the no sexual intercourse, because that like risks infection, because obviously they've been like up my cervix, at least, you know, for the next like 2 weeks. And I guess with sexual intercourse they also want to avoid you like getting pregnant if from when I ovulated that egg's still around, but very unlikely. But the no rigorous exercise once again really bums me out, because I was gonna play tennis this weekend, and I played tennis in my early pregnancy with Rowan, like before I found out I was pregnant. And then I got too sick to be playing tennis. But then I played again up until I was about 20, 21, 22 weeks. And that was when like my hips gave out and it was too painful physically. But it's just really interesting to me. I'm like, why can't I play tennis? And then also I've gotten into the routine of going for a run every Friday morning after drop off. And so I'm not going to be doing that for the next 2 weeks either. And so I'm just like, what is the reason? Are they scared that I'm going to like jiggle and the embryo will come free? Has it even implanted? We don't know. We don't know. So now it's just the waiting game. Dan said to Rowan yesterday, he was like, oh, a doctor put a baby in mummy today. And bless Rowan, he just like looked at me and was like, and then like really gently put his hand on my stomach and I like could not handle it. And I was like, no, there's no baby in there now, but like hopefully soon. And then I went to the toilet because I needed a wee and just cried on the toilet. But I'm feeling a bit more emotionally stable today. Also very grateful for the tube strikes this week. There weren't any yesterday, thank goodness. But there's a lot of tube strikes this week, which means Dan's working from home, and so I need that like knowledge that he's like in the other room and we can have like breaks and lunch together. I like can feel myself, like I don't know what if it's like physically, mentally, emotionally or chemically, like need that closeness to him. So there you go. I'm gonna crack on with the rest of these and then get on with work. Like try and do some work for the next 2 weeks. I don't know how I'm going to do anything, especially if I can't go for a run or hit some balls, because that would really help me mentally. And I'm not allowed, and I don't understand why. 12 days later, the wait is over, kind of. I haven't felt like vlogging throughout the entirety of this wait because actually the wait was easier than I expected. I was able just to like get on with things. There was enough stuff going on, like keeping me busy, keeping me distracted, that I felt like picking up the camera to vlog and like talk about my feelings would draw my attention to it. So I was just like happy to, you know, obviously it was there like in the background of my mind. I didn't really want to bring it into focus. It's been much harder in the last couple of days because obviously like my period is due, and so there's also this like anxiety and this anticipation of, am I pregnant, is my period about to come? But I've also been able to ignore it because we've had family with us for the last 3 days because it's been Rowan's birthday and his birthday party. So the timing of everything couldn't have been more perfect because I knew that I'd be like crazy busy doing lots of things, having lots of family around, keeping my mind off it all. So today is officially the day that they said that I could do a pregnancy test, but I didn't. And generally they say to do it in the morning because that's when the hormone that they're testing for is most like concentrated in your urine. But we still had family who were staying over last night and so who were here in the morning, and I didn't want to be dealing with the repercussions of a pregnancy test, whatever the result may be, whilst also hosting. So we're gonna save it for tomorrow morning, get the first specimen of the day. And so obviously now the wait is killing me because all the family have gone, it's just us, but it's fine. I have some level of self-control. I also only have one pregnancy test in the flat. It's just one left over from the last time when I was testing, which would have been months and months ago, like before we started doing IVF, and I had one pregnancy test left in that pack, and I have intentionally not bought any more. I'm just gonna see what the result of that one is and then buy more if I need to. I am cautiously optimistic for a couple of reasons. One, my period hasn't come yet. Two, my temperature is still high. So I track my basal body temperature every night, and I think I'm on day 16 of high temperatures, which is a good sign, but it's hard to know how much doing an embryo transfer and taking the pessaries would interfere with my cycle, like if it didn't stick. So technically, by my normal cycle that I have from when I think I ovulated, my period is now technically late, but only by like a day. But again, I don't know whether whatever happened with the embryo transfer, if like, you know, it got some way along, but not all the way along, whether that would have interfered with like this part of my cycle being longer. I have no idea. So cautiously optimistic.
no period, temperature still high, boobs still hurting. We will see tomorrow morning.